So now that we've blocked out our assembly, we can actually start adding some visual detail to this thing. So let's open up this neck piece. We'll start with that. And one of the nice things about working in assemblies like this is that it's so easy to jump in and just work on one isolated component at a time without having to worry about everything else going on in your assembly. So let's grab this outer face and create a sketch on it. And while it's still selected, instead of doing convert entities to bring in the edges, we'll do offset entities, which is going to offset those edges in one direction or the other. In this case, let's reverse that direction, and 10 millimeters looks just fine to me. I'll hit OK. I'll head up to my features and do an extruded cut. Now, that cut doesn't need to go super deep. I would like to add some draft to it, and let's make it maybe 30 degrees, so it's a pretty extreme draft. Hit OK. Now we have a nice cut there. I'd also like to add, a protrusion on either end as well. So let's go to my, we'll start on this plane actually. Let's create another sketch right there on that plane. I'm going to create a circle starting right here in the middle, and I'm going to snap it out here to this exterior edge and hit escape. Now the line is still blue, so if I drag this, it's going to change sizes. So what I can do is select that, Control-click this outer edge, and instead of putting a concentric constraint on this, as we've done in the past, this time we'll come over and do a co-radial constraint, which is essentially just make it the same. There we go. So now this circle is constrained to always be exactly the same radius as the rest of our product, which is perfect. Let's go to Features, Extruded Boss, and I do want to go out a little bit, something like that. Let's say 5 millimeters in that direction. I also want to go the other direction, and I'm not sure how far it needs to go. So instead of going a blind distance, let's drop that down and just say up to next. That way it's just going to go up to the next thing it hits and stop. It won't go all the way through our product or anything. It'll just stop right there. Hit OK. And that looks perfect. Let's click off. And notice one of the cool things about the way SOLIDWORKS geometry kernel works. When it noticed that these two surfaces were co-radial cylinders, it just merged them together into one big clean cylinder instead of having multiple faces there, as you might be used to in some other systems. So let's head over to the other side and do something a little bit different. I'm going to create a sketch on that face. We'll just create a circle there in the middle-ish somewhere. Once again, we can select this edge, Control-click any one of these edges and make those concentric. So that'll be stuck there, right where we want it. Then I'll do an Extruded Boss. This is going to come right on out, something like so. And we will draft it a little bit, just not nearly as much. Hit OK. That looks fine. And then finally, we just want to kind of detail this a little bit. Let's head to this one. I'll create one more feature on this. I'm going to create a circle on it and do an extruded cut with this guy. We only need to go in by, say, maybe 5 millimeters. I will draft that in, once again, with quite a bit of draft. That looks good. And I'm ready to actually mirror this to the other side. So we head up to our linear pattern tools, drop that down, we'll do a mirror, and then drop down our neck part, use the right plane, and under features to mirror this time, we could go through and try to click each one of them in the viewport, but it's kind of hard to figure out which feature is which in the viewport. In this case, I think it's going to be a lot easier to mirror this feature and that feature and that feature and that feature. Just do it in the feature tree. That just keeps things a lot simpler. Hit OK, and now we have a mirrored part. And furthermore, of course, if I click these, you'll notice that this is changing on both sides. Really good. Now, one more thing. Let's grab our fillet tool and just fillet the heck out of this thing. I'm just going to put a bunch of rads on all of these edges. Notice that you can click both faces and edges. If you click a face, it's going to fillet all of the edges adjacent to that face, which can be desirable if you're hurrying like I am. So we could just do something like that, something like that, something like that. That should get pretty much everything that we need. And hit OK. Now we have a fully filleted part. So we can go back to our main assembly. Yes, we want to save it. And we have all that detail right there in the assembly. It's looking a little bit weak. Let's just edit this part. Click on one of these faces. Let's just grab this face here. Click that green and extend it on out so it's back closer to where we think it ought to be. Maybe a little bit wider than that. Something like so. That's looking good. Excellent. Get this just peeking through on this side. Don't worry. We'll detail out that neck next.